Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Wednesday, February 17th, 2021. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Members of the public who wish to watch and listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. WCTV, Channel 22, Comcast Xfinity, Channel 38, Verizon Fios, and live stream WCTV.org. This meeting of the Wilmington Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may also do so via telephone by dialing 1-646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID 891-1675-6819, then press pound and press pound again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make public comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the meeting designated for public comment by following the steps previously noted, then press *9 on their telephone keypad. This will notify the meeting host that the caller wishes to speak. All callers using this feature will be placed in queue in the order they entered the prompt. In the event that, despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide real-time access, we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able. All votes will be roll call in alphabetical order, and as always, thank you to John O'Neill in the town's IT department and our friends at WCTV who are recording this meeting for future viewing. I do want to note that this is a revised agenda. It was revised this morning only to change the WCTV channels to Channel 22 Comcast Xfinity and Channel 38 Verizon Fios instead of the usual Comcast 9 Verizon 37. We'll start with roll call. Mr. Bendel.
Present.
Mr. Kyra.
Here.
Mr. De Palma.
Present.
Ms. O'Mahony.
Here.
I'm here as well. All members are present. I would ask that those that are able to rise to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we do not have any transmitting of the Treasury warrant or minutes to approve tonight. So before we move to our 6 o'clock appointment, which is the Board of Selectmen discussion regarding the vacancy of the school committee as a result of the resignation of Stephen Bjork, I will note that we are joined by members of the school committee tonight, and thank you folks for joining us. I do want to set the table a little bit and explain that the purpose of tonight's meeting is to come to a resolution on the process that will take place so that the now vacant seat on the school committee will be filled, hopefully in a manner that is clear and concise and fair. I will open it up to discussion for members of the school committee as well as the Board of Selectmen. But first, again, I want to summarize where we stand and what options we are faced with. First, where we are. On February 1st, Dr. Bryson had reached out to me to let me know that Steve Bjork was resigning from the school committee. That resignation ultimately was finalized in an email from Mr. Bjork to Dr. Bryson on February 9th. Dr. Bryson provided written notice to the vacancy on February 11th, and Mr. Bjork's term runs until April 2023. Second, and really the reason for tonight's meeting, is how we address this vacancy. The school committee has a policy on unexpired term fulfillment, and I will read it. It is relatively brief, but I will read it. When a vacancy on the school committee occurs for any reason, the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of the committee shall share the responsibility for filling it. As provided in the law, the school committee will notify the selectmen that a vacancy has been created within 30 days after it has occurred. After 1 week's notice has been given to the committee to the selectmen, so that voters of the town may have the opportunity to state their candidacy, the two governing bodies will meet to fill the vacancy by roll call vote. For election to fill a vacancy, a candidate must receive a majority of the votes of the officers entitled to vote. The person so elected will fill the seat on the committee until the next town election, at which time a member will be elected to serve the remainder of the term, if any. School committee policy makes reference to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 11, which is the statute which governs appointments to fill vacancies in town offices. This is the process that the town followed in the summer of 2018, following the resignation of the late Peggy Kane and the ultimate appointment of Joe Newhouse to complete Ms. Kane's term. The immediately preceding statute, Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 10, provides in pertinent part, if there is a resignation of a town officer creating a vacancy at some later time certain, and such resignation is filed with the town clerk in accordance with the provisions of Section 109, said town clerk shall certify a vacancy shall occur at the later time certain, and the Board of Selectmen may call a special election as provided in this section. Provided, however, that no such election may be held prior to the effective date of the resignation creating such vacancy. No election shall be held for any office pursuant to this section unless the Selectmen file with the town clerk notice of an election for such office, not less than 15 days before the last day to submit nomination papers to the registrars of voters for certification, before the election or any preceding primary, caucus, or preliminary elections. Now, there are a couple of elements in that portion of Chapter 41, Section 10 that do bear fleshing out. First, and most obvious, there has been a resignation. Second, that resignation, the email from Mr. Bjork dated February 9th, has been filed with the town clerk. And third, that the town clerk has certified that a vacancy exists on the school committee. To that point, that means that the Board of Selectmen may call a special election to fill that vacancy so long as certain timeframes are met. Namely, that at least 15 days before the last day to submit nomination papers to the registrars of voters for certification, the Board of Selectmen provide notice to the town clerk that they have called for a special election. The last day to submit nomination papers for the upcoming town election is March 5, and 15 days prior to that is February 19th. This is the process the town followed in February 2019 when Ed Lowndes resigned from the Board of Selectmen effective February 12th, which led to the special election on the same day as the annual election, which ultimately led to the election of Ms. O'Mahony to the remaining 1 year of Mr. Lowndes' term. Now, on our agenda tonight, there are two items to consider. First, whether to direct the town clerk to include on the ballot for the April 24th, 2021 election, the remaining 2 years of the now vacant seat on the school committee. In theory, our options are to place it on the ballot this April for the remaining 2 years. Alternatively, we could place it on the ballot in April 2022 for the remaining 1 year, or we could not call for a special election and the seat would remain vacant and next be on the ballot when the term expires in 2023. Second, whether to convene a joint meeting of the school committee to fill the unexpired school committee seat. Now, that second item to consider happens independent of the decision that is made on whether or not to call a special election. In deciding whether or not to have a joint meeting with the school committee, we could decide to take no action and leaving the seat vacant until the seat is next on the ballot, whether that be in April 2021, 22, or 2023. Or we could decide to meet and make an appointment until that next election does take place. If the Board of Selectmen tonight decide to notify the town clerk that we are calling a special election this April for the remaining 2 years in the term of the now vacant seat, we would need to provide 1 week notice if we were to have a joint meeting to make an appointment that would expire on April 24, 2021. Remaining meeting dates on the school committee calendar between now and the April 24th election are February 24th, March 10th, March 24th, and April 14th. Now, because February 24th is 1 week away from tonight, and we would not be able to meet the posting requirements prior to that meeting, at most, any appointment in the meantime would be for 3 meetings prior to a special election, barring any off-cycle meetings. I do want to open it up at this time to members of the school committee for any questions, comments that they may have regarding the 10 minutes that I've just rambled on for. And if you have any preferences, and then after the school committee is finished, then I'll open it up to the board for further discussion. So, because I'm looking at, it looks like 14 different boxes here, just raise your hand and we'll go in the order that I see you. All right. Members of the board, Dr. Bryson, go ahead.
I always try and let everyone else go first so that I don't take over. I'm comfortable with the election this coming April. That I'm glad to hear these timelines. It was not my understanding when I first learned about the resignation of the vacancy. So I'm happy to know that that's actually a possibility. That was not what we thought was a possibility initially. And so I don't have any reservations with having a special election this April.
All right, any further comment from members of the school committee? Ms. Burns?
I have to agree with Ms. Bryson, seeing that we're not too far away from the spring election. I don't mind waiting, and I think as a contingency plan, if no one does step forward with the special election aspect, then we can always opt for Plan B, which would be a joint meeting between the school committee and Board of Selectmen for an appointment process. So that's my preliminary thoughts on what we have before us.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Mr. Samaha?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to clarify so that I have full understanding. If it was decided that April 24th of 2021, we wouldn't necessarily need to meet beforehand to fill it for the 3 or 4 meetings before that election. Am I correct in saying that is one of the options?
Just so I'm clear on what your question is, if the Board of Selectmen were tonight decide to instruct the town clerk to call for a special election on April 24th, 2021, is your question that would we be required to have an appointment in the meantime? No, we would not be. We would have the opportunity to take no action on the board to consider item of having a joint meeting with the school committee. So
okay.
In effect, it would be a parallel process for what happened when Ed Loud resigned in mid-February 2019. There was a vacant seat on the board for just over 2 months.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no comments on the school committee, I see Mr. Bendel has been patiently waiting, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everybody, distinguished members of the school committee. Welcome. Before I make any comments about what the process may be, I just wanted to take a step back and publicly thank Steve. I don't think it can be said enough about his years of volunteerism and service to our community. So I'm really grateful for Steve. He's somebody obviously that I admire as a friend, and somebody that I aspire to be like. He's certainly been a very positive leader for our community, and he stepped up anytime anybody needed him, whether it was Rotary Club or emceeing an event or even moderating a debate. So he's been a great leader and a good friend, and most importantly, he's a really good dad. So I want to send all of my well wishes to him and thank him for his service.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Any further comments? Yes, everyone can hear my 13-month-old in the background. So, any further comments from members of the Board of Selectmen? Ms. O'Mahony, I see you raising your hand.
Sure. I mean, I obviously echo what Selectman Bendel said. First and foremost about Steve. We definitely appreciate all that he's done, and know that he didn't make this decision, lightly. That he wouldn't step down from something like this unless there was a more compelling reason, and that's because he is an unbelievable dad. So we appreciate that and acknowledge that, and hope he knows that that's how we all feel about him. And we know, it's not goodbye. There's going to be some more down the road that we'll see him, I'm sure, doing. With regards to how we do this for the vacancy, I really am deferring to kind of the school committee's wishes, because I also want to acknowledge that the school committee, like the Board of Selectmen, is a volunteer board. In this past year, it hasn't felt, I'm sure, like a volunteer position, given the Herculean efforts that have been needed in these unprecedented times of a pandemic. So, I am going to take my lead from you in if you feel okay with kind of having an empty seat at the table for a few months, then, I'm going to support that. If you feel like you need, you can't be down a player for even a minute, then I want to hear that. Because it's really, I know you've been dealing with an amazing amount of issues, and I don't want to leave you shorthanded. But I also don't want to set you up to have to kind of get a new player up to speed, not to keep using a sports reference. But, if you feel like you can handle it till the special election, great. If you feel like you need kind of someone to to come in now. That's what I'd like to know or hear more about, kind of what would be most helpful to support what you guys are dealing with right now.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Kara?
Yeah, I too want to echo the comments from Mr. Bendel and Ms. O'Mahony regarding Steve Bjork. Really a positive role model, a positive influence on the community. He will be certainly missed on the school committee and his leadership role that he's taken. So we wish him well in all his endeavors.
Mr. De Palma?
I want to echo my colleagues' thoughts on Steve, but also a question now. If we put it on the April election, it'll be two for the 2 seats that are up now, and then there'll be a separate for Steve's seat, correct?
Correct. So it would
Like,
be,
just
it
like-
actually is a very close parallel to what happened in 2019. So
Okay.
at that time, the seats that were then filled and continue to be filled by Mr. Bendel and Mr. Kyra were on the ballot in the same election that the same day that the special election to fill the unexpired 1 year remaining on Mr. Loud's seat that Ms. O'Mahony ultimately was elected to. So the 2 3-year terms that are on the ballot, just by virtue of the date for the school committee, would remain unchanged by whatever we decide here tonight.
Thank you.
So certainly, I will echo my my colleagues' comments in regards to Mr. Bjork. He's certainly done a lot more volunteer activities than just in the school committee. I know him most from working together with him on the Rotary for trivia night, but he's a very kind-hearted person, a very dedicated public servant who has put forth just an incredible amount of effort in serving this community. And I wish him and his family the best in the future, and I look forward to crossing paths once that happens. But with respect to the decisions that we have before us tonight, it is my strong preference that vacancies to elected offices should be filled by elections, not appointments. I think that for us to make an appointment to any of the now 3 individuals that have reached out to express an interest in the now vacant seat, we'll be putting our thumb on the scale a little bit inappropriately, I think, on an election that will be happening in just over 2 months. This is a school committee that, as Ms. O'Mahony has stated, works very hard. And I think they work hard at the will of the residents of Wilmington who have elected them to work very hard. And with this now vacant seat, whoever ends up filling it, I think should be chosen by the residents of Wilmington in a democratic, free, and fair election. So it is my strong preference that we, on the first board to consider item, we do instruct the town clerk to place on the ballot for the April 24th, 2021 election, the now vacant seat on the school committee for the remaining 2 years of that term. And on the second board to consider item, that we do take no action on scheduling a joint meeting of the school committee so that there would not be an appointment between now and April 24th, 2021. That being said, I'm 1 of 5, so we can certainly have a motion on either board to consider item, and doesn't necessarily need to be my recommended one or my preferred one, but
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we direct the town clerk to include on the April 24th, 2021 election ballot the vacant position on the school committee for the term that expires on 2023.
I'll second that.
all right, we have a motion by Mr. Kyra, seconded by Ms. O'Mahony. Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the roll call vote. Mr. Bendel?
Yes.
Mr. Kyra?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Ms. O'Mahony?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. That is unanimous. On the second board to consider item, the convening a joint meeting with the school committee to fill the unexpired school committee seat until the next election for which that seat is on the annual election ballot, which we just decided will be April 24th, 2021. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Bendel, I think I heard you chirp in first, so.
I'll yield to my colleague, Mr. Kara.
Go ahead. No, Mr. Bendel, I don't want to
We're being way too
monopolize
polite.
the
Somebody just make a motion.
motions. I'll second your motion, Mr. Bendel.
Thank you. You better be careful. I haven't said it yet.
All right.
We take no action on the side.
Let me think.
We have a
All
motion.
right,
from
I'll
Mr.
second
Bendel,
it.
seconded reluctantly by Mr. Kyra. Further discussion. Seeing none, Mr. Bendel,
Aye.
Mr. Kyra,
Yes.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mahony,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. So to recap, we were going to have, we were always going to have an election on April 24th, 2021. For the school committee only, there would be the 2 3-year seats that were going to be on there just by virtue of it being 2021. And there will be an additional 2-year term on the school committee that will also be on that ballot. For any individuals that are seeking to serve in that 2-year term, or for any other elected office that is up on the annual town election this April, you must request and receive nomination papers from the town clerk's office. You have to gather your signatures of 50 registered voters in the town of Wilmington, and the town clerk's office will do a very good job of recommending that you get slightly more than that, just in case somebody signs and is not a registered voter. But then return those nomination papers back to the town clerk's office by March 5th, 2021 for certification. That would get someone on the ballot. So there are now 3 seats from the school committee on the ballot for the April 24th, 2021 election. There will not be an appointment for the now vacant seat between now and then. I think I got that just about right. And I think we can move forward to public comment unless there's further discussion. So if any members of the public wish to make public comment, please do so by dialing 1-646-558-8656. You'll enter meeting ID 891-1675-6819. You'll have to press pound again at the next voice prompt, and raise a virtual hand by pressing *9. Mr. O'Neill, do you have anyone on the line?
Mr. Chair, we have no callers at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. I'll leave it open for a minute just in case anyone cares to call in to make public comment.
Mr. Eaton, can I ask a question?
Of course, Mr. Fenley.
Just, and you may have said this, and I apologize if I missed it, but given the action taken by the board to sort of schedule a special election, I understand the deadline for returning nomination papers. Do we know when the town clerk's office will have them available? They're not different than the sort of standard nomination papers, correct?
I believe, Mr. Hawley, please chime in if I'm misstating the facts, but I believe what would happen is you would have to be specific in the term that you were seeking as you requested nomination papers. So if you were to request nomination papers for a school committee seat, they would ask you if it was for a 3-year term or the now 2-year term. And I believe that they would be able to turn those around time of. So
yeah, Mr. Chair, when I had to pull my papers, they're the exact same papers, but they will ask you to specify which term you're seeking, the unexpired term or the 3-year term. But I think they can pull them as of tomorrow based on our vote. So I don't think there's a delay if that's what you were asking, Mr. Fenley. I think because of tonight's actions, people can pull papers tomorrow.
Thank you both.
Ms. Burns?
I just as a little caveat, because we're living in a pandemic world, it would be best anybody seeking to pull papers to call the town clerk's office to arrange an appointment so that they can go over the paperwork and the process. So that's something that's a little odd than our usual election seasons.
Thank you, Ms. Burns.
Mr. Chair, I have let a member of the public in. You may want to go over the instructions again for them to indicate to us they wish to speak.
So I do see a number. It's 978-761-5994. If you're interested in speaking, if you have pressed pound twice, then you are going to need to press *9 to raise your virtual hand so that Mr. O'Neill can let you in.
There's been no prompts, Mr. Chair.
Mr. O'Neill, do you have the ability to I guess invite that person to raise their hand? I'm not quite sure. I know this is.
I don't. We could certainly try to unmute them if you'd like.
Yeah, if you could try, Mr. O'Neill. I don't want to. The person's gone through the trouble of punching in numbers for 30 seconds. I don't want to hang up on them.
And they have left the meeting.
All right. Well, certainly if anyone cares to make any comment directly to us, the email addresses of members of the Board of Selectmen and the school committee are available on the town and school's website, respectively. So at that point, I'll close public comments. Are there any announcements? Mr. Bendel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two quick ones, if I may. Just an update for this board and for the community at large. I spoke with Liam Prigmore today on the phone. You'll remember the gentleman who was brave enough to take on the project at the town common for our fallen heroes and work so closely with the Veterans Agent Lou. And I just wanted to let everybody know that after this board and our state delegation wrote to our congressman, Liam was accepted into the Maritime Academy, and he got the congressional recommendations that he needed. And he's super excited about it. So I took the liberty of congratulating him and letting him know we're really proud of him. So he's well deserving of that opportunity, and I know he'll make the best of it. And the second one, if I may, is just want to give a shout out to somebody who's up 32-19 at the half, girls basketball team, and Kylie Duchamp is only the second female ever to score 1,000 points in Wilmington, and the sixth person in our history to do it. And I know her parents pretty well, Bob and Linda, who are really, really proud, and I want to congratulate her coaches and teammates. So good luck the second half against Arlington as well.
Mr. Bendel, there's 1,000 rebounds too, right?
Yes, that's 999 more than I ever had.
Yeah, that's a hustle stat. Don't overlook that, Mr. Bendel. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move to new business. Any new business? Mr. Bendel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick item, please. If Mr. Hull, could you update us at our next meeting, please, if you have the ability to, on the Recreations Department's use of the schools in the spring?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other new business? All right, seeing none. Mr. Hull, will you take us through important dates?
Yes, we've got the Selectmen's meeting coming up on February 22nd, virtual 7 p.m. Finance Committee meetings begin on the 23rd again. Police, public safety, dispatch, and fire on the 23rd, then the 25th. The town clerk and IT, again, Finance Committee, 7 p.m. March 2nd, Finance Committee, 7 p.m., Shawshene Tech. And March 4th is the Finance Committee with the Wilmington Public Schools at 7 p.m. virtually. March 8th, next Board of Selectmen's meeting. March 16th is the public hearing with the Planning Board and Finance Committee, where all the various articles are reviewed in total. Again, that'll be a virtual meeting, 7 p.m. March 18th, the Finance Committee will meet, again, public session, 7 p.m., but they will determine their recommendations with respect to the articles in the budget. And then May 1st, of course, is the annual town meeting this year at the Shriners Auditorium, beginning at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Hull. We move lastly to our salute to service. Mr. Richard Holahan enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1952 and honorably served until he was discharged in 1954. Mr. Holahan was awarded the Korean Service Medal with 1 Bronze Service Star, the National Defense Service Medal, and the Presidential Unit Citation, among other awards for his service in Korea. Mr. Holahan was a longtime Wilmington resident and was known around his neighborhood as a nice guy. Unfortunately, Mr. Holahan passed away in 2019. And as we always say, we should be proud to have known men like Richard and honored to have had them live in our community after their service to our country. And all items on the agenda having been addressed at this point, at the late hour of 6:32 p.m., I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion from Mr. DePalma. I'm going to interpret Mr. Bendel's as a second. Mr. Bendel.
Aye.
Mr. Kyra.
Yes.
Mr. DePalma.
Yes.
Ms. O'Mahony.
Yes.
I will make it unanimous. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, folks.